Love riding adventure bikes, but jumping over rock piles and going down sand washes. 460 something pound bikes. Ugh. Of course, you know, could be worse. Could be an accountant making real money or something. You know, I love riding off-road. Dual sport bikes, enduro bikes, but there's something about adventure riding, you know. You can start at home 200 miles away, ride 150 miles, get off-road for 50 miles, and not feel all beat up. You know, it depends on what you want to go out and do, but it's kind of what does it for me, you know. Getting out and being able to push your limits and being on a bike that you can, you know, trust to have more skill than you do, at least for me. Which brings me to the point of being out here on this stone chair in the middle of the desert. The 2021 KTM 890 Adventure R. The 790 is a favorite of mine because it's what I still believe to be the best middleweight adventure bike off-road, and that's kind of, I like to get out and explore with adventure bikes. I like to, you know, maybe a 2-hour freeway slog, but then find some trails and just look around. And so the last couple days I've had the opportunity to do that with KTM's 2021 890 Adventure R. So first off, let's take a look at what's new with that bike. So yeah, I mean, the big deal with the new bike is the new motor, right? So they punched it out, kind of same thing we saw happen with the 890 Duke R and the 790 Duke before that. KTM is now claiming that the new bike is making 10 more horsepower and about 9 pound-feet more torque, which is putting it at claimed 105 horsepower and 74 pound-feet torque. When we dynoed the 790, I think it was putting out around like 84 horsepower and like 54 pound-feet of torque, something around there. So expect the numbers that KTM's claiming to be a little bit lower. We haven't dynoed it yet, but that is in the plans, so we'll get those numbers up on the website as soon as we can. A lot of the bike is fairly similar to what it was before, so really it's the motor is kind of the standout feature here, and aside from the bigger bore and stroke, making the larger capacity, it has a lot of new engine internals as well. It's got a little bit bigger valves. The transmission it actually got a shorter throw on the shifting and a lighter spring, so it feels even lighter, which I never had a problem with it before, and none of the bikes that I rode ever had any shifting problems. Some of them were a little bit notchy maybe. The 4th, 5th, and 6th gear got a surface treatment to make it a little bit more wear resistant. And overall, I mean, I can feel the difference in the shifting. It is shorter throws, and the bike that I've had, I don't have a ton of time under my belt on it, but I've probably put, I don't know, almost 600 miles, probably 800 by the time this day is over. And there have been no issues at all. It's really precise, little short throws, really happy with it. And then you have a lighter subframe. And it's still the bolt-on type like it was before, but now you got a little bit less weight in the back. But other than that, it's really pretty much the same bike. The WP Explorer suspension is the same. I believe there's a little bit of a valving change in the shock, but the fork is otherwise the same, and it's great. Both suspension front and rear is really great. It's a big part of what makes this bike the most off-road capable. The chassis, the way it flexes, the way it just handles off-road. Big hits, small hits, at speed. The bike really does a really great job, it's confidence inspiring, you know. It makes you want to go farther, and it kind of helps you get farther to a point. The electronics are the same as they were on the 790. One of my complaints though is now you have to purchase rally mode on the 790 Adventure R. It actually came with rally mode. Now that's an option, and if you were to get the rally pack, they call it, the quick shifter and cruise control, it's actually like I think it's a $550 option. So on top of the MSRP, which is $14,200, if you want to get it to really where you're really going to want it. And these electronics are, in my opinion, the most useful electronics on any adventure bike, the way they let you kind of dial in the way you want to ride the bike. So you're looking at, you know, $14,750 with that added. Other than that though, you know, you get a really great adventure bike for under 15 grand. And again, like I said, the electronics package in rally mode, you're able to dial in the amount of traction control between 9 settings on the fly with the left switch gear. And that's a really big deal. I mean, there have been times when I've been riding the bike where you go through sand and you want it at 1 or even off, which you can do, but you have to stop the bike and turn it off. But if you're just blasting down a dirt road and end up in a sand wash for a little bit, maybe you're on a rocky road, so you keep the traction control on 3 so the back end isn't flying all over the place, and then you get into a sand wash and you can bump it down to 1. And that's one of my favorite features about the bike, really, because it helps you ride the bike better. And I think what's cool about the KTM 790 and 890 Adventure R is that it's a bike that you can really grow with, because you can rein yourself in with that traction control and it'll help you out, and then it can take you to levels, you know, beyond most people's capability. You know, we had a guy place 4th in the Sonora Rally in Mexico against, you know, proper dirt bikes on a 790 Adventure R, and then Quinn Cody, who works with KTM Research and Development, has been racing the National Hare and Hound Series on the thing and decimating his class. It's just an incredible bike, and you don't have to be Quinn Cody to come out here and ride it on, you know, this kind of terrain. It's almost a little forgiving. Like, some people, the motor is pretty powerful, but again, you can kind of dial back the throttle settings in rally mode as well as the traction control. Again, it's kind of, you can give yourself as much of a safety net as you want, or take it off completely and end up, you know, shredding your rear tire, because there's a lot of power there. In my opinion, after riding that bike out here on the freeway, my biggest complaint is how much my butt hurts right now. It's basically the same as sitting on this shale piece of rock that I'm on. That's what the seat is like. I've spent the last 2 days going from the desert to the coast, back and forth, and the freeway slogs are kind of a killer. I mean, it's nice that the thing has cruise control, and seating wise, like, the position is really great and just kind of upright and neutral, and I don't mind the wind blast that you get having the lower windshield that the R model has. But that seat, man, I don't usually replace seats, but that'd be the first thing I replaced on this bike. Other than that, you know, after riding the 790 not too terribly long ago, and then this 890 Adventure R, you know, it kind of brings me back to the question, like, is the motor and the lighter subframe and the engine internals, are these changes worth, you know, if I just had one side by side and it was the same price, which one would I pick? I'd for sure pick the 890, because the motor it's really good, and it's just got so much punch all the way throughout the rev range. But, you know, if what's probably really happening right now is, you know, 890s are arriving in dealerships and 790s are probably getting discounted, or, you know, the guys that got to have the latest and greatest, maybe they're selling their 790 because they want that little bit extra engine power. And if you could get a 790 for a smoking deal, be hard pressed not to take that deal over the 890. I just think that the bike was already so good, and for the relatively small changes, I mean, obviously the change to the engine is important and it's a big change, but at the same time, the 790 was great. And I think, you know, kind of looking at it from a different perspective with the 790 Duke and this 890 Duke R, I just think there was a lot bigger of a change, because there were suspension changes and the motor, and all of the sum of the 890 Duke R's parts, I think that made it a lot better bike than what the 790 Duke was. And if you ask me, you know, if you could get a deal on the 790 Duke or get the 890 Duke R, I would pony up for the 890 Duke R for sure. But that's just not the way I feel about the 790 and 890 Adventure R. The motor is better, but did you need anything else off-road? Not really. You can feel it on the road, and if you're sticking to the pavement, you know, yeah, maybe you'll want that little bit extra get up and go kind of throughout the RPM range. But when it comes to riding off-road, you still have the same suspension and whatnot, and if you can get a smoking deal on the 790, maybe that's the way to go. And with those electronics, you know, KTM did say with the new 890 Adventure R, they have refined those even more, which it's really cool to just kind of test them out if you have the chance. Like, when I got the bike, I went into a dirt lot and, you know, changed the traction control, slid around, one down, slid around, just to really see how well it'll let you dial in the amount of slide you want. And yeah, the 890 is supposed to have even further refined electronics. And so that's a great point, you know, for an already great electronics package. And one thing that I was looking forward to with the 890 is they mentioned they had a 20% increase in mass for the crankshaft, which in theory should help, you know, for like technical poking around, so you don't stall as much. The engine has a little bit more rotating mass, and I think that is the case, because there have been a few times where I feel like the bike should have died when I was out messing around, and it seemed to keep chugging along pretty good. So I think that did help. Is it substantial over the 790? I need them back to back, like jumping off one, jumping onto the other to say for sure, but it feels really great out here so far, and with everything that I've ridden today, whether it was slower speed stuff or kind of sliding through a corner, I think it feels really good in that regard. All right guys, so that's the end of the day. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I think that pretty much does it. So we're gonna take off for the day.